Welcome to the Sermon in the Valley with Pastor Rob Eller. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast on any of those platforms and share it with your friends and family. Thank you. The views expressed in this episode are solely that of the host and do not reflect the official views of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in New Philadelphia, Ohio, the Northeastern Ohio Synod, or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Thank you. Welcome back to the Sermon in the Valley. Pastor Rob Eller here with your Thursday commentary episode. So the big event that happened in the past week was the Super Bowl on Sunday. I'm sure many of you watched it. And as you were watching it, one of the things that people like to tune in for is the commercials. Well, there are some really funny ones. Quite a few this year brought back casts from sitcoms that many of us loved. But then, of course, there was the one that made a lot of us pastors groan. It was the return of He Gets Us. The ad campaign that debuted last year in the Super Bowl and came back again for the holiday season. In fact, I did an episode on this back in late November because it had come back for the holidays. And well, consider this a part 2, a continuation, what have you, because it's an all-new ad this year. And the whole campaign is just as bad as it was before. To recap, the whole He Gets Us campaign. It's an ad campaign put out to try to get people back to church by saying, "No, Jesus understands us," which is a pretty obvious statement to make because there was never any doubt that Jesus or God understands us. I mean, we are God's creation, so why would God not understand us? And this year's campaign, once again, feels good on the surface. It takes various groups of people that I know are usually in conflict with each other, and it places them in the story of the foot washing that we have on Maundy, Thursday. It takes opposing groups. There is, a police officer washing the feet of an African American. There is, then one of them is outside a family planning clinic, a protester washing the feet of a person trying to get into the clinic. A priest washing the feet of a gay person. Again, it on the surface, it feels good. Because you think, okay, that's fine. We can bridge these gaps and come together. And the overall theme of this year's one was, Jesus didn't teach hate. Okay, there's a lot to get to in here. First of all, the whole feet washing thing that's a scene taken out of context from the Bible. On Maundy, Thursday, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples because he was taking on the role of the suffering servant. He wasn't doing the foot washing out of love. He was doing it out of service to others. And he commanded the disciples to go and do likewise to each other. To serve each other. Foot washing had nothing to do with love. It had to do with service. So they took they took a scene about service and turned it into love, which it's not terrible. It's just a misuse of that particular story. And as someone who likes to take stories and put them in their context, it drives me nuts. But of all the issues, that's actually just that's the least of my concern. I mean, it still has that feel good image to it. That part's the least of my concerns. As I said previously, the whole He Gets Us campaign was originally funded by an extreme right-wing conservative evangelical group tied to the family that founded and owns Hobby Lobby, the craft store. And so there's a huge disconnect with this year's campaign and where the money came from. This year's campaign is all about, no, Jesus didn't teach hate. It's all about loving everyone. But on the flip side, the money that was used for this campaign came from groups that are all about hate and not about love. There couldn't be a further divide between the messaging between these two groups, between the people who funded it and He Gets Us campaign. No, it feels deceptive. It feels like a bait and switch. Like they're trying to cover up their misdeeds by doing just the opposite. So, which is really authentic then? I personally can't trust a campaign who says one thing and the people who fund it do something else, do the exact opposite. I can't trust that. And they're trying to reach out to the marginalized groups that the church, that the conservative part of the church has ostracized over the years. They're trying to reach out to them, but is it really authentic? Have they really changed their minds? Or is this going to further cause more pain? I mean, I would love to get involved with it just to direct people to my congregation because we are open and welcoming. But at the same time, I don't want my church's name attached to that campaign because of the disingenuousness of it. I feel like it'd become guilt by association, and I don't want to be a part of that. And then comes yet again, and I brought this up before, the amount of money spent. It is the millions of dollars spent. I believe I saw somewhere it was like between, I don't know, $10 and $20 million spent on this ad for the Super Bowl. The amount of people that could be fed with that money, the amount of homeless that could receive shelter, the amount of people who could get clothing, could get medical care with that money. Yes, as a church in general, we need to do a better job of evangelizing. We need to do a better job of getting our message out to the people. But not by spending that much money. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this whole campaign has divided pastors. You know, I'm in a handful of Facebook groups for clergy, and one person had this comparison, saying that all of us who are complaining about the money spent could be spent elsewhere. It sounds a lot like when in the Gospels, in the Gospel of John, Judas decried Mary dumping a bottle of anointing oil and perfume on Jesus, saying, no, that money could be spent for the poor. Well, Jesus had said at that point, no, he's being anointed for his death. That's all very biblical. But Judas was right. And don't get me started on the bad rap Judas gets in the Gospels. I did a whole episode last year on Good Friday about this, and I'll probably revisit again this year. But just briefly, Judas gets a bad rap. We see him as, the ultimate betrayer, which is true. But he had a role to play in the story. He had a role to play. Jesus still broke bread with them. Jesus still washed his feet. Because Jesus knew that what was to come. He knew that this wasn't Judas's true intentions. That he wasn't a bad person. Judas faced temptation. He gave into the temptation, but after he saw what it caused, he repented, he turned back, and he felt horrible for what he did. And I know many of us can relate to that. So, honestly, that whole comparison to Judas, If you're gonna call me Judas for saying that the money in this ad campaign should have been spent elsewhere, then fine. I will pick up that badge and wear it. Because that money should have been spent elsewhere, not on this ad campaign. Because that $10 to $20 million, you know where it went? Into the pockets of the media companies and their executives. It didn't go to any good. It didn't help anybody except line the pockets of the media companies. And yeah, we will get some more people in churches. You know, people will start looking around and seeing. But it shouldn't be at the expense of helping others. It shouldn't be at the expense of feeding the hungry. It shouldn't be at the expense of sheltering the homeless. And I'm at a loss for words for it. I am truly at a loss of words. Because we can do better. We have to do better. Now, I'm not against doing an ad campaign to bring people in the church. Let me just clear that up. I'm not against an ad campaign. But as long as it's not spending an obscene amount of money, and as long as it's done by a reputable organization. No. We have the National Council of Churches, a ecumenical Christian organization that has many different denominations belonging to it, wide spectrum of Christianity. If they had sponsored the campaign, if they had put it out, and maybe spent, a tenth of what was spent on this campaign, or even less, then I'd be all for it. Because the National Council of Churches is a reputable organization. They stand for everyone. Yes, there are churches that belong to the National Council of Churches who aren't open and affirming, but there also are churches who are open and affirming, and we work together. I would be fine with that. But I do not want to be I don't want to be associated with an organization whose funders are openly against certain people just because of who they are, who they love, etc. To sum up everything from the first episode I did on this, yes, of course, Jesus gets us. There was never any doubt. But what this ad further proves is that we still don't get him. And we will not figure it out if we continue to rely on this. You want to get Jesus? Read the scriptures. Read the Bible. And then love and serve your neighbor. That's how we get Jesus. There was never any doubt that he gets us. Thank you for tuning in today. The Sermon in the Valley is written and produced at the Patrick Stevens Broadcast Studio in the heart of the Tuscarawas Valley. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. We are now on YouTube because, unfortunately, Google Podcasts is going away soon. So find us there, as well as at Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. God's peace be with each and every one of you. Have a blessed day.